Hello, my name is Tucker Johnson, and I am one of the authors of a book called A General Theory of the Translation Company. I have a copy right here. And I wrote this book together with my partner, my business partner, and my co-author, Renato Beninato, several years ago. And the book is based upon our combined decades of experience in the translation and the localization industry. This is an industry that is a fascinating industry. It's a niche industry, but yet it is an all-encompassing industry. It is an industry and a profession that simultaneously nobody has heard of, but everybody has experienced, because everybody at some point has consumed something, whether it's a product or a service or a book or a YouTube video. Everybody has consumed something that has gone through the translation process. And that's what this book is all about. We wanted to take our combined experience and condense it into a framework and into a book that is easy to read and easy to digest for people that are perhaps new to the industry, people that are studying to get into this industry. This book has been adopted by multiple universities that have translation and localization programs in it. It's really a book for anybody that wants to learn about this fascinating industry, this fascinating profession, but doesn't have years and years and years to invest into studying it. So what I wanted to do, now that it has been several years, is go back through and read my own book, because I may have written all of these words, but it's been some time since I've gone over it, and I think it would be an interesting experiment to see what exactly has changed since then, and what hasn't changed. My hypothesis going into this is that not much has changed, because I made an active effort while writing it. Renato and I made an active effort while writing it to write something that was timeless, to write about things that wouldn't change. So we avoided technology. For example, there's fascinating things going on right now with machine translation and artificial intelligence. We didn't talk about any of those, because if we did, then we would have to write a second edition in 2 years, because that's how fast technology goes. So while I'm going through this book, I wanted to invite you to go through it with me. I wanted to open up this invitation for everybody. And in the meantime, let's create an audiobook together. Let's create a video. Let's create a conversation around this. We'll read this book together. And in this book, I do believe I remember writing that it is our goal to provide a framework for the industry so that we together can have better conversations as a whole. So let's start those conversations. We're going to dive right in tonight, ready or not. I've got everything set up here, and hopefully you can see me. There's probably one or two of you watching live right now, but these videos will be saved to our channel here at Nimdzi Insights, my company, for future use. And am I ready for this? No, I'm not. But we're going to dive right into this together and start with the introduction here. So I've got my nifty iPad here. The book is available in PDF. The book is available in ebook format, Amazon, Kindle, all of these formats, all major online retailers, if you would like to follow along at home. If you are a current Nimdzi client and would like to engage with this video series and would like a copy of the book, please reach out to me or your account representative here at Nimdzi Insights so that we can make sure to get you a copy of the book. We're not going to charge clients for a PDF, so please reach out to us, info@nimdzi.com. Let's dive right in here, shall we? The General Theory of the Translation Company, a title that is both ambitious and some would say arrogant, but we are going for grandiose here. Of course, we stole this from the general theory of interest. I forget. I'm going to look silly. There's another big book by this. Our dedications here from Renato. Renato dedicated it to Elsie, his mother, and to his two children, Sofia and Luca, who are now 3 years older, as are my children. I dedicated it to Awo, my wife, who put up with many late nights at the laptop while writing this book. I wrote this book while working a day job, so there were many nights when I was at the computer. And my children, Connor and Gary. And now, 3 years later, I have another one. We have Michaela as well. So thank you, Michaela. This book is broken up into two parts. And the first part is really kind of laying the foundation for the industry, going over the five forces model and an introduction to the general theory of the translation company. The second part gets into the 7 support activities of the LSPs and the 3 core functions of the language service provider. So it's broken up very logically, structurally in that way. Without further ado, let's get started, and we're going to go through the introduction tonight and see how it goes, and we'll be doing future chapters as we move forward. Page 3, if you're following along at home. Welcome to the language services industry. If you are already an industry veteran, then welcome to your opportunity to get a new perspective on the industry. It is a good place to be. We have fun here, and we hope you will as well. And why wouldn't you? This is by far the most fascinating industry in the world. We, the writers, Renato and Tucker, have dedicated decades of our lives to localization. It is not just a job, not just a career, but also a passion and a way of life. There is no other job on the planet that could lure us away. And it turns out space cowboy isn't a thing yet. Well, it wasn't at the time of writing this book, and it isn't now. And I do apologize. I do have children, and this is a live stream, so hey, the more the merrier. Maybe they can learn something. We have chosen to write this book for 2 reasons: to teach and to have fun, not necessarily in that order. Why teach? What do we want to teach? And whom do we want to teach? Let's explain. Typically, translation is a lot like toilet paper. Nobody ever thinks about it until it is not there, and nobody really knows how much it costs. This has allowed the language services industry to largely fly under the radar for decades, serving humbly in the background and letting our clients take the credit for the work we do. But now, the industry is changing. Those of you who have been around a while know that this is nothing new. The industry is always changing, but there is a difference now. It is starting to mature, and people from outside the industry are noticing, and they are very interested in what they see. More and more companies are turning their eyes towards global domination, and fresh faces are entering the industry every day. Back in the Stone Age, when we started working in localization, that's to say me and Renato, nobody ever chose to enter this career. Ask anybody who has been around the industry before George Bush was in office. It's the second one, I think. Was in office, why and how they started in localization. Most will simply shrug, smile, and say, funny story, actually. At which point, you should run. Run fast. Despite what they say, it will not be a funny story. It will be long, and it will be boring. The point is that in days past, this was not a mature industry. This was not a mature industry that people aspired to join.
What friend of Den? Get out of here.
Like I said, kids. Oh, the point is that in days past, this was not a mature industry that people aspired to join. People just used to land up in this industry. Today, they climb into it. There were no school children dreaming of becoming localization project managers when they grew up. Today, multiple college courses and degrees prepare young, aspiring language service professionals for a career in localization. Renato and I actually teach at some of these courses, and this textbook actually is used at a lot of universities that are teaching localization these days. Just a side note. No single person or company founded the language services industry, despite what Renato says. he may take credit for it himself if you talk to him. Over the millennia, the industry evolved into what it is today, and the evolution has happened almost completely organically until now. Now we are witnessing the adolescence phase of the industry. Outsiders are starting to recognize some of the big names in translation, and it is not only when there is a major lawsuit in the news. Typically, translation is only news if it's bad news. As the language services industry comes into its own, it has become apparent that there are some gaps that need to be filled, particularly for young entrepreneurs who are starting out in the industry, or industry outsiders who are perhaps interested in learning more about what goes on behind the scenes at a language services provider, or an LSP, as we call them. For such interested parties, there is no single source of information available. Basic information that is so abundant in other industries seems to be missing when it comes to the language services industry. In pursuit of our goal to teach, we are hoping to bring to the language services industry the same level of information and visibility that we take for granted in other industries. This is an overly ambitious goal for one book, but we predict that in the days to come, we will see more and more readily available information about language services. Eventually, this book will be a drop in the bucket, but we hope that by publishing early, we are able to influence, even if only in a very small way, the way information is taught, shared, and learned in this industry. I'm debating whether to put a pin in that and come back to that. A lot has happened in 3 years in our industry. And I would say, if I were so bold as to call this a prophecy, that prophecy is largely coming true. Ways to go yet. We'll come back to that. Moving on, our second goal for writing this book is to have fun. In case we haven't mentioned it already, we really love the language services industry. This book can be seen as our best attempt to convey our passion and enthusiasm for all things localization. If we were politically inclined, we would call it our love letter to, or poetically inclined, we would call it our love letter to the localization industry. We both have very short attention spans, but somehow we have been able to stick around in this industry for some time now, which can only mean that we are still having fun. It never gets boring. So we are not ashamed to say that publishing this book is largely a selfish endeavor. We could claim that we feel a solemn responsibility to share our experience with the world, but really, we also want to have fun, and this seems like a neat little challenge for us. Just like this live stream right now is a neat little challenge a few years later. It is important to be upfront about this motive to have fun, because it will undoubtedly affect the way that you read this book. Because even though this book contains a lot of useful information, it is not a textbook. It has been written like it has not been written like a textbook, nor should you read it like one. Textbooks are boring and unexciting. There is no passion in textbooks. This book, it's an extension of ourselves, Renato Beninato and Tucker Johnson. There is no way we would write this without the passion we have for the language services industry. Also, we like simplicity. We like short sentences, really short sentences. Easy to write, easy to read, very easy. See? That's another reason this book will not fit into the textbook category. This book is our attempt to provide information about the language services industry to those who are thirsty to learn more, and to deliver it in a way that will not bore you to tears. Out of necessity, some chapters may be a little bit more dry than others. We encourage you to hang in there. There needs to be some meat on the bones, and we will attempt to deliver that meat in as palatable attempt as possible. And we have these cartoons here, if you're following along at home. These are an attempt to draw Renato and Tucker here. I will save the cartoons for those that have downloaded the PDF. All right, how do I get rid of this? All right. We will not teach you how to manage a glossary or to internationalize your code. There will be no discussion on how to run a third-party quality assurance review, manage a website localization project, or set up an on-site interpreting project. This book is not about the how, it is about the what, And most importantly, it is about the why of the language services industry. There are plenty of other, if much more boring, books that will happily regurgitate localization best practices for over 500 pages. So if you are interested in the how, then you may need to look elsewhere. However, since you presumably already paid your hard-earned cash for this book you are holding, or you have a YouTube subscription and you're listening to me now, me read it, we invite you to stick around to see what you can learn. This book will help the small business owner understand how to better grow their business. This book will inspire the young or old entrepreneur who wants to get into the language services industry. This book will help any and every employee working for a language services provider better understand how he or she adds value to the localization process. This book will encourage curiosity. It will raise questions. It will not provide all the answers, but it will provide us all with a common language to be used to frame better questions. I'll read that again. It will not provide all the answers, but it will provide us all with a common language to be used to frame better questions. It will facilitate a discussion between industry veterans, young entrepreneurs, language services buyers, investors, and anyone else who is interested in learning more about how to survive and thrive in the most fascinating industry on earth. And that's it for our introduction here. I'm wondering if my kids have burned down the other side of the house. Next time we do this, we're going to get into the general theory of the translation company. This is a book called The General Theory of the Translation Company. And so we're going to talk about the general theory of the translation company next time. What is it? What's included in it? A sneak peek. It includes 3 different sections that are going to be broken up over part 1 and part 2 of this book. We're going to start with the market influencers, which is based on Michael Porter's 5 forces model. And that basically looks at the forces, the market forces that are moving in the industry and how it affects language service providers specifically. So it's kind of like a Michael Porter's HBR 5 forces model for the language services industry, because we work in a unique industry. And then we're going to get into the 7 support activities of language service providers in part 2. And finally, we're going to end with the 3 core functions of project management, vendor management, and sales. And that's the book. That's what we got to look forward to. So if you're interested in joining me together on this, subscribe to the Nimdzi channel. I'm going to be putting these in a playlist. Maybe I can convince Renato to join me for a few, and we can talk about it together. If you have any suggestions on particular things that you'd like to cover or format-related suggestions, please reach out. I'm all ears. We're doing this together. We're in it together. It is it's only 7:30, but it feels like 10 o'clock on the night before Halloween. And this is it. Let's see how quickly we can get through this book. I usually tell people that they can read the whole book on the plane ride home from whatever conference they were at when I gave it to them. So we're going to test that theory. Until then, my name is Tucker Johnson. I am one of the authors of The General Theory of the Translation Company and founder and managing director of Nimdzi Insights, together with my partner and co-author, Renato Beninato. Thank you for joining me tonight, and we'll see you next time as we get into the General Theory of the Translation Company.